Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. I am very appreciative that you're spending this time, whatever time within this hour that you're able to spend with me. We have a lot to go over today. It's interesting. I kind of got a late start in putting this all together because, I had a whole lot of stuff to do. I just got through doing a full 1,100 calories of working out. So I'm a bit, for those who are watching me on Periscope, if you see a little bit of sweat drop every now and then, you have an idea why. Well, today, we had another huge, sad killing. And let me be frank. I was at KPFT when the news came over, and when they started to talk to me about it, I'll be frank with you. I kind of got a little bit choked up for one specific reason. It was, here we go again. It was, here we go again. How much more do we have to take before our government actually does something? And I'm going to tell you something, folks. It's all up to you. Because the president had a word. He called it collective, and, well, I named it, or I guess I said collective answerability. He said we collectively are answerable. And folks, the reality is we are collectively answerable. And until we as a people realize that we're collectively answerable, until we really get serious about doing what we really have to do, nothing is going to change. I mean, many of us are in many groups. Many of us do a whole lot of things extracurricular to our jobs because we want to make a difference. I'm going to tell you bluntly, so far, we're just nibbling, folks. We have a lot more to do. Now, yet again, this is what I wrote in the blog post for the show. I said, yet again, we were witness to another shooting massacre on a college campus in America. President Obama displayed a controlled anger as he lamented America's inability to deal with our gun violence problem. The answer is gun control. However, the gun industrial complex will have none of it. It is, however, deeper. America has become impotent because of our collective neglect. That is what we will discuss today. That is what I hope to discuss with you today. And I know many of you are exasperated. I am exasperated. I know Greg is exasperated. Folks, by the way, folks, for those of you that are on Periscope, I tell you, please go ahead, and if you want to comment, let me hear it, and I'll also put it out here, whatever it is that you say, so that others who are listening over the network can also see that, because I'd like to make it as interactive as possible. This Periscope thing that we're starting, where you can actually see me do my talk, do my show is a new thing that I want to see how we can incorporate to kind of get a better flavor to it. So please tell your friends to join Periscope. Please tell them it's going to be interactive. Please tell them that we want to hear the voices. Please tell them that collectively, together, we want to make a difference. All of us are already doing that in our regards. The mere fact that you're here, the mere fact that you're here, you're absolutely correct, Greg, that people are driven by fear, but we can help them. We can actually help people not be so driven by fear. But you know, folks, you know what time it is.
It's time for the weekly blog post.
I am still cooling down from that heavy workout that I needed to do to get rid of some of that collective anger, if you will. That collective anger. Just watching the news today. And I tell you something before I get into the blog of the week. You know what got to me about the news today? It wasn't about Oregon or Roseburg or Umpqua, the school where it occurred, or the killer. It is about 9 people being murdered on a college campus. And today the news is almost back to normal. That is what got to me. I sat down on that bike, killing myself, watching CNN, MSNBC, and all these guys, and going from one station to the next, folks. One station to the next. And what was so amazing is how little of it, I mean, yes, it's being covered, but how it's almost normal. It's almost normal again. So here's the blog of the week. The president exasperatedly addressed the shooting massacre at Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, Oregon, with a passionate press conference. There was one statement that should be cauterized in every psyche. He said, "We collectively are answerable to those families who lose their loved ones because of our inaction." If one looks at America in the aggregate, that statement could as well say, we collectively are answerable for the demise of the America we thought, the America that we thought we had. This is deja vu all over again, folks. A mass shooting occurs. People are shocked. The president speaks begging for legislation. Time passes. People forget. No substantive action is taken. People go back to life as usual. It is a pattern that we expect. It's a pattern that has become routine. We are now programmed. The system has programmed to be accepting of this. I'm going to digress from the blog a bit. Think about what I just said. I'm sitting there on the bike. I'm riding hard. I'm watching the news. I'm watching all the different news channels. And we're back to normal. We are now programmed to be accepting of this. Sadly, this pattern is true not only for mass killings and gun control. A few weeks ago, there was great media hoopla over a young snotty-nosed CEO raising the prices of a generic drug by over 5,000%. He went from $13.50 to $750 per pill. While the particular story made great cover, it's a lot of hoopla, it's but the tip of the iceberg. Drug companies have been extorting Americans for years. Obamacare do little to solve that problem. A few in Congress got riled up. Hillary Clinton got riled up. Bernie Sanders called for hearings. But guess what? Guess what? Americans are on the next story, and few are engaged with this ongoing problem. We collectively are answerable to those that will die because they cannot afford to pay extorted drug prices. That is a fact. We collectively are responsible. Doesn't matter. A lot of us are working hard at it, folks. A lot of us are working hard at it. But we are still answerable. Which means those of us that are working hard at it, we've got to continue. We have to break through. We have to come at it from every single angle. We all have different approaches. We must use them all. Corporations have unions. The Chamber of Commerce is no different than a union. All the different trade organizations that work collectively for particular private sector corporations are no different than unions. Who then speaks for the vast majority of American workers? Nobody. Yet, one continues to see the decline in employee union membership. In fact, unions are much less popular than they should be given the employment dynamics of the country. We collectively are answerable to those that are destined to corporate-driven indentured servitude. And who's that? Most Americans. I digress. Most Americans. Every year, the defense industrial complex gets billions of dollars, billions of American taxpayer dollars to build systems the country does not need. We know that. And to serve America's military overseas that would be better served by the military itself at a much lower cost. Let me digress from the blog a minute. I have a friend who served in Iraq. He said, Egberto, guess what? Whenever I go and I swipe my card for food, because you know it's all computerized now, I swipe my card for food. Cha-ching! That's $30 for Brown and Root. Well, not Brown and Root. I think, what are they called now? They're called, well, you know what company they're called. I don't quite remember what company they're called, but Brown and Root, the company that's run by our good old Vice President Cheney, or whatever you want to call it. So, as it turns out, yes, the hawks that represent them sell policies to Congress that are always wrong. They get continual access to major news networks, even with said record of failure. You know, they've always been wrong. They get continual access to major news networks, even with said record of failure. Americans have seen the results in Vietnam. Americans have seen the results in Iraq. Americans have been the brunt of the blowback from our bad acts overseas. Yes, Greg Rossack, American culture trains us to be warlike, greedy, and selfish. That from Greg Rossack. Those words belong directly into this blog post as well. Put it at the end of the blog post, my dear brother. Now listen, folks. They get, and folks, other folks on Periscope, please interact. I want the back and forth that we get as well. And I'm coming to you as well, John, as soon as I'm done with the blog of the week. We got to keep this going, folks. We got to keep this going. Anyhow, they get continual access to the news networks. Even with said record of failure, Americans have seen the results in Vietnam. Americans have seen the results in Iraq. Americans have been the brunt of the blowback from our bad acts. Think about things that happen to Americans overseas. I can tell you that some of the things Americans have done in Panama, where I'm originally from, have caused some blowback to some very good Americans going into town and feeling the results. Not that it's correct. I'm not justifying it at all, folks. Do not think that I'm justifying the hurting of anybody as retribution. But in the real world, there is something really called blowback. There is something called blowback. Yet Americans continue to vote in politicians that take the country to war and transfer these countries' treasure to a few. Remember, war is a money-making business, and who profits? A few. The few who own the companies, and specifically the few who run the companies. Think about it. We collectively are answerable to those that have died in unnecessary wars and the pilfering of the American treasure that all that entailed. The trend is obvious. Take any substantive issue, and the answer is the same. When Americans are polled, except for social issues, their needs and wants are not all that very different. And that is what I preach all the time. For some of the people who read some of the stuff that I write, sometimes some would believe, I know I have my buddy over here, that some would believe that, well, sometimes you're being too soft on the right. These people need to be hammered to some extent. Look, we need those folks who are going to hammer them. We do need them. But we need those as well who are willing to use some of the soft stick, because I have empathy into believing that some of these people just simply don't get it. They're brainwashed. They are brainwashed. And as a person who is willing to take a whole lot of crap myself for the better good, you know, I tease folks all the time. Oh, I'm an old man. I've gotten a whole lot of good stuff. I can take a little bit of crap here and there now. So I am willing to take some blows. I'm willing to humble myself. I'm willing to be to some extent to be spat on. I don't care, because if it's going to be for the better good, okay. As long as we know that we're making progress, it's okay. But anyway, the trend is obvious. Take any substantive issue and the answer is the same. When Americans are polled except for social issues, their needs and wants are not all that different. An economic system that has evolved into a predatory economic system, a virtually unregulated crony capitalist system, will do whatever is necessary to ensure Americans never have time or opportunity to explore their commonalities. Why? It would endanger the very foundation of their system. A skit titled Bread and Circus by Move to Amend in Utah is a perfect illustration of America's seemingly short attention span, and an attention span that prevents us from acknowledging our need to be collectively answerable. The story is that old empires used to control their populace by giving them just enough bread to survive and then sedate them with entertainment. Today, America has lots of cheap food, mindless reality TV, and manufactured empty entertainment stars to keep the American collective eyes off of the ball. It is time that Americans stop accepting the marketing and propaganda from the plutocracy. The problem is that most Americans do not understand that they are constantly being marketed to and brainwashed. It is the job, it is the civic duty of those who know these realities. Greg Rusak, John, all you guys that we are constantly together fighting the system. It is our duty, our civic duty of those who know the realities to help fellow Americans understand this through all possible avenues of communications until Americans really feel collectively answerable for our brothers and sisters, for who we are, for what we do, for every outcome in this country. We will be relegated to commodity status and indentured servitude by a burgeoning plutocracy. The telephone numbers, folks, is 646-929-2495. Please give me a call. We're on Periscope. Egberto Willies is a Twitter account assigned to that Periscope that you can reach us. I would love to get more Periscope users. I have to find a way to market Periscope to bring more people in. I will do that over time, and we will be over time trying to make this a more interactive program. I've started doing it at KPFT as well. KPFT becomes a bit more difficult because I have to hook it into a lot of their equipment, and there are some compatibility issues. 646-929-2495 is the number. Please go ahead and give me a call. Would love to hear from you. And if you're in Periscope and you want to add to the discussion, just go ahead and, use your fingers and tell me a message. If you like the program, tap the screen and give me some love. Let me see those hearts flying across the screen so that I can know, yes, you are in fact there and listening. And to start our program, I bring on my buddy from San Antonio, Texas. John, come on in, my friend.
Good afternoon, Egberto. How you doing?
All right, sir. How you doing, my friend?
I'm okay, but what happened this week's pretty disturbing. And,
yes.
I want to address something that the Heller case really gave a lot of energy to the people who believe that was done properly. Basically, the Heller case was a case in 2008, which essentially before there was never any Supreme Court that said that the Second Amendment gave you a right to own a gun within your own home, and that's what the Heller case did. And so
I'm learning that. Yes,
it basically, right. It threw out the part that said, that other courts had been talking about for years about the case of a well-regulated militia. That was completely thrown out. John Paul Stevens said that the court's judgment was a strained and unpersuasive reading, which overturned long-standing precedent, and the court had bestowed a dramatic upheaval in the law. Stevens also stated that the amendment was notable for the omission of any statement of purpose related to the right to use firearms for hunting or personal self-defense, which was present in the Declaration of Rights in Pennsylvania and Vermont. So, they put that specifically in there, but it wasn't in the Second Amendment. So it says Stevens' dissent seems to rest on four main points of disagreement: that the founders may have had the original right aspect of the Second Amendment expressed, that was intended, that the militia preamble in the exact phrase "to keep and bear arms" demands the conclusion that the Second Amendment touches on state militia service only, and that many lower courts' collective right reading of the Miller decision constitutes state decreases, which may be overturned at great peril, and the court has not considered gun control laws, that is, the National Firearms Act, unconstitutional. The dissent concludes, the court would have us believe that over 200 years ago, the framers made a choice to limit the tools available to elected officials wishing to regulate civilian uses of weapons. I do not possibly conclude that the framers made such a choice. So, you hear it even from journalists. They're saying, Heller basically gave this right that was never
written.
The Supreme Court never said this before. And this really kind of changed everything, and this is just another example of the Supreme Court that
making
is
law
completely out of control.
Right, and making law.
And so, right, and so this is what happens. These are the end results of that. I'm not saying that before. The young man had 13 guns. Why anybody would want 13 guns is beyond me. Except just the guy was, I guess, extremely paranoid.
He was.
To me, I don't. It's hard for me to really understand that mentality. To have fear, overriding everything in your life.
Well,
that is just all you think about is, I've got to get back, and I'm so afraid that people are going to get me. I got to have all these guns, and all these people who think that this is, and they're all over Texas.
Right.
That this is such they act like the country.
Right.
They'd fight a civil war over this.
Well, you know what? You know what is interesting. Thanks for that, love, my newcomer to Periscope. Please, guys, keep on coming on to Periscope. Now, let me tell you something. I met a militia guy from Waco. He left the militia, but he was still friendly with them, and he actually invited me. These gun mass shootings are becoming all too familiar. You're absolutely right. Joseph Pampania, welcome aboard. Yes. Let me tell you, you're absolutely right. But I had a friend who was in the militia, and he left them, but he's still friendly with a whole bunch of them. And he said that it's interesting that the mentality, and that is the reason why I have a whole lot of empathy, because what these guys are promoting, John, is they're promoting to these guys, and they're using a whole lot of what do you call something when you use something to represent an occurrence that isn't really a usual occurrence. Anecdotal. They're using anecdotal occurrences to sort of brainwash people into thinking they're under attack. And this is how this guy felt. I tell you, a lot of people killing requires no. Yeah, that's true. You know, there are a lot of people who think that way, and they think they're under attack, and not until you can get them in a corner and let them speak. And you know, I mean, it's a slow process, and it's something that John, a Periscope user, Joseph Pomponio says you're absolutely right. Now, I tell you, in speaking to people, I've given, you know, I've sat down in coffee shops all over the place. In fact, I've spoken to folks and given them all the latitude they needed to speak. And just to see somebody who they know or they believe is on the other side, and some pinko liberal give them that opportunity to just rant. And then after that, start asking questions and letting them answer these questions themselves. In other words, we're gonna, how the reason they want their guns is because they have to defend against the tyranny of the United States. My next question to them have always been, can you tell me how any AK-47 or bazooka or any one of these can go against an F-18 Hornet? And so you ask. I mean, that is one of the sillier ones. But you ask a whole lot of questions of these people and let them start answering it themselves, and somehow that approach starts to bring them around. I on my KPFT show last week, I had the guy who ran for Texas controller here, and he told me the same thing. He said he'd been going around rural Texas. He didn't lose by a bunch when he ran the election in last November. What he said is he's been going around rural town, and he said, Egberto, I'll tell you one of the things that happened. I've been letting these folks do a whole lot of talking. And he said you would be amazed that they are pre-programmed to believe that you are not going to be there to listen to them, that you don't care about them, and you don't care what they think, you don't care about their values or anything. They are pre-programmed to believe that. And once they reach someone that they know is on the other side, that isn't like that, immediately, they start to listen to you then. So, I mean, it's going to be a slow process, but I tell you what, we have a lot of headwinds, because for those of us who are trying different methods, there are all of those that are right now on the attack, hoping that they can prevent us from actually getting together to bring things to fruition. Now, go ahead and finish making your point.
Well, I think I made my point pretty well. I mean, it is political in the sense that, I think Obama gave a very good speech.
Yes, it was.
The day of the murders, and then the day after, he also made some very good points. But I mean, the only way this is going to change is if Democrats are elected. I mean, let's just be honest about it.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you hear very few people saying that. I know you had a nice blog piece with Charlie Pierce saying that.
Yes.
That was real popular on Daily Kos. But I mean, that's the only way this is going to change, because I mean, you heard all of the Republican presidential candidates and what their views are. I mean, they don't want to change anything.
You know what is wonderful?
This keep happening and happening and happening, and they don't care because they're bought off by the gun industry, and I mean, and they just don't care. I mean, they really don't. And so anyway, I mean, I feel that's just where we're at, and I think people should be emphasizing that more and more, because that's really the only way anything is going to change.
No, it was interesting.
It's not going to change, until the earliest is 2017.
Right.
So I mean,
I was happy to see something. Let's see. Joe Pomponio says, make this an issue to those running now. Start this year with local elections. Joe Pomponio, you're absolutely correct, and in fact, it's interesting that you're saying that, Joe, because what the president said, and I didn't see the whole news conference, I was away, but what the president, I saw some snippets, said was, in these times, in these dangerous times now, we need to be, for this particular issue, a single issue voter. That's what he said. We need to be a single issue voters. And what he meant by that is every politician must be asked, are you going to support sensible gun control? Yes or no? You fumble, you lose. And that is something that we must actually do. We have to come out there and force the issue. The thing about it is, we can, in as much as folks may say, this is happening, let's say every couple of months, something like this happening where we have these massacres, and you add the amount of dead divided by the population, and they say, well, look at the statistics, and it really still is inconsequential. As all these things are happening, America continues to become more and more armed. Do you know when I ride the streets in Houston, I don't use my horn? I don't blow or anything like that? Because this is like the wild, wild west. Do you know that here in Texas, university students will be able to carry weapons on campus? Did you know that? John, I'm pretty sure you did.
Yeah, I think that just passed, right? I mean,
yes.
In this last session, right? Yeah.
Yes. Now, I don't know if you saw the blog that I wrote last night, I believe it was. I was watching MSNBC, I think sometime in the afternoon before I left here. I had to take, I had some personal stuff I had to do yesterday. And I was, I took out the, I saved the piece from MSNBC. I keep a lot of this stuff recorded. But it was interesting. Oh, let me block. You're right. Joe says, if the shooter were Muslim, somehow, it's we would have been doing a whole lot right now, more than what we're doing now. I missed the entire message. But here's the thing. I wrote a blog last night about this, a Republican woman who was the commissioner in Douglas County where the murders occurred, where the massacre occurred. And she continued, you know what was her answer to the problem, right?
Yeah, I did see that. More guns.
More guns.
For everybody.
More guns. Right. Now, my last question, I think it was near the last question in the post I asked, okay, more guns, these students are armed and they start shooting. Which person will the police believe is the person or the perpetrator? Not only that, when the Wild Wild West shooting begins, who believes that some folks won't believe some of those students are, welcome to Austin, Greg Ruzek. You're only 200 miles away. But yeah, who would think that, by the way, I missed the entire message that you sent, so I'm going to have to go over it a little later. But think about this. Who thinks that some of those students wouldn't be taken for being the perpetrator and some of them harmed? It behooves me to understand how people can actually believe that more guns are the answer, or more guns is the answer. Do you have any ideas on that, John? More guns?
Yeah, first of all, they already had, students could carry
right
in Oregon. So nobody was carrying. In what you said, it's hard to say. Exactly what would happen. I'm obviously against the idea of
right
of having guns on campus, and I just think it's just gotten out of control. The whole thing, the idea, it's just fear and paranoia run amok.
Right.
And so it's like you said. Who knows? More people could have actually been killed from the shootout.
Exactly.
That's why the police are trained to do that. But anyway, one thing I would like to talk about. I don't know if you want to talk about this also, but
mm-hmm.
I'm just going to throw this out there.
Mm-hmm.
Is you had a piece on the Corinne Brown situation in Florida.
Right. Oh yes,
and,
yes.
And so I would like to speak a little bit about that if you want to.
Yeah, please do. Let me remember the topic that we're talking about. We collectively are answerable for the demise of the America we thought we had. That fits the picture perfectly. So please make the point, my friend.
Okay, the point is, why don't you go ahead and
You want me to tell what happened? Okay.
give your opinion of the piece that you put up, and because I think you would probably be able to
Yeah, let me tell you what
to
happened.
give a better.
Yeah, what happened is Corinne Brown has been a fixture in the legislature in Congress representing a particular district in Florida. They have been trying to get rid of Corinne for a very long time, but she's very loyal and to her congregation, I mean to her constituencies, and she's always reelected. That said, a Republican woman decided that she wanted to find, or they all wanted to find a way to get rid of Corinne. So what they did is they drew a district that had that to districts have to have a certain amount of populations. Well, they drew the districts in an area that had several jails, and of course, jails in America are populated with a lot of minorities, black, Hispanics, etc., etc. Because guess what? Blacks, Hispanics get on a percentage base more jail time, and whites generally get a whole lot more probation time. That's just the system, the prison industrial complex. And I wrote an article with regards to how the chain works to put people into prison, and when you put people into prison, they lose their rights to votes. So you get to count the population at the same time you have that population that was counted that cannot vote. And they made use of that fact to draw the district in such a manner that the probability of Corinne Brown losing that election was high. Moreover, in as much as they know that it would probably not pass Mulster, even with the Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act being disabled, that because damage had to occur before they went to court, that somebody else would have been reinstituted there, and that somehow the lawsuit in the long run would go away anyway. So now you can make your point, my friend.
Okay, so that's what was presented in your piece,
Right?
And so what I agree with is that obviously the lady, I think her name was I don't remember her name, but it's on your blog post.
Right.
She was I think a representative in Florida.
In Florida, that's correct.
So what she wanted to do was essentially redistrict this area,
right.
which is the District 5,
Mm-hmm.
and make it, to where it would have essentially majority white Republican representation.
Because of the jails.
But because of jails, that's one aspect of it, right? Okay. But I mean, there's really a much larger story though to this.
Okay.
And here's the story is that in 2000, this started even earlier, like 2008, 2009, there was this movement, this anti-gerrymandering movement that came about. And since the Republican House and Senate, ruled, they didn't pass this, they didn't want to do it, but what ended up happening is they got it, the people who got enough signatures to place this on the ballot. It was Amendment number 6 on the 2010 Florida election.
Right.
And it won.
Right.
It won by 63%. Okay. So that was on the very next day, Corinne Brown and I think it was Mario Diaz-Balart, who represents an area in South Florida.
Yeah, I think it's near the corridor.
Lawsuit.
Right.
Right. They both filed a lawsuit saying that this anti-gerrymandering law was unconstitutional.
Right.
Okay. And so,
But
so
you know why they did that, right?
Brown, well, here's where you get a lot of different opinions here, because a lot of the people, a lot of like people from the ACLU and the NAACP were actually against what Corinne Brown Leon was doing,
right.
and most Democrats were also.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so here, let me give you some lines from the sentence. It says, Brown's role has angered many Democrats and longtime allies who view it as selfish, and a selfish act which jeopardizes a chance for reform. It says it's really sad. It's just plain wrong, says Howard Simon, exclusive executive director of the ACLU of Florida. I like Corinne, says Leon Russell, an NAACP leader who's worked on election issues, but I wish he hadn't have done this. I think he should frustrate the process purely on the basis of your self-interest, no matter who you are. And they had quotes from other Democrats, and I remember reading about this, 4 years ago, and so basically the point that they're making is that there's no question that her district is gerrymandered
Right.
to reflect
A black
the
vote.
Voting Rights
Yes.
Act. In other words, she has the black community represented in 3 different large cities, in Jacksonville, in Gainesville, and in Orlando.
Right.
And so, but what the Democrats were saying is that, what we should be doing is we should make, since she wins all of her elections by 30 points, and all the districts around her, the Republicans win by 30 points, what we should do is actually try to get, 2 Democratic representatives who don't win by 30 points, but maybe there'll be close elections. And so
John,
that's where
I get that.
conflict is.
I really get that, but I mean, there are 2 issues, right? There are 2 issues in that. One of the issues is that they want to have they want to make it anti-gerrymandered districts. In other words, they want to have a more equitable, a more sensible breakup of districts. But in the process of creating that more sensible breakup, and by the way, all politicians are selfish. Corinne wants to stay in office, and all the other Democrats want to stay in office. All the other Republicans want to stay in office. That is understood, and I am not trying to make Corinne angelic or anything like that. What the purpose of the blog post was to illustrate what happens behind closed doors with a particular person targeting a congressperson based on these particular type issues. And if you notice, one of the major paragraphs in that blog that I wrote had to do with the prison industrial complex and how it actually can be used to corrupt the electoral system. Stay with me, John. I want to come back to this, but I have some other folks that are trying to get in, and we're coming close on time. So I want to continue to explore this, but I want to get some other voices in as well. So 1111, I think this may be a Skype caller. Come on in.
Yeah, it's a Skype caller. I thought I'd give you the covert phone call today, Egberto.
Rodrigo, ¿cómo estás, my friend?
Bien, I do.
Luchando, man, talk to me, sir.
I've been listening to about the last 20 minutes or so, and I want to make this comment.
Yes.
First of all, there's no question in our society that we need to have, I don't know what you call it. I mean, I know that my position on guns as far as background checks and stuff are really simple. It's no one should have one that has a criminal record at all. There should be the same regulations for sales in gun shows and in private sales as there are in gun shops. They should be uniform without question. But I'll tell you this, and I heard you guys, you were discussing very well the incident and the lady who was, calling for more guns, which that conversation is ridiculous in my mind. But I'll tell you this: if I would have been at that college and I would have had access to a gun, I wouldn't have hesitated, and I would have went after the guy without question.
And there was somebody who did that, yes.
Yeah, well, no.
But he didn't have a gun, but he
got shot 7 times, right? He got shot 7 times, but he went after him, and I understand. The reason I wanted to call is because you had made a comment in your blog, I think it was, or maybe in one of the headings, where you mentioned the vigilante side of that mindset, and I don't believe that what I just described to you is being a vigilante.
And you know, Bobby, I want to stop you right there for 1 second. I need to stop you right there for 1 second because that needs to be understood. I have most friends who have guns. Most of them would not react correctly in that environment, but some would. And neither one of them would I consider vigilante. That said, remember that remember that friend that I told you was among militia folks? Those guys are vigilantes, and those guys that he hangs with are vigilantes, and those guys are rather dangerous because again they are looking for an action. You know, they are not doing this for some.
Yeah, I don't know particularly the guys.
Right.
I do know we have talked about this before,
right.
Where I know that there are some really, really, really bad people running around the border in Texas,
right?
Screaming. Absolutely, it's totally ridiculous. You know, that's one of the reasons why I won't associate with militia as an oath keeper, for example, and of course there's issues with that from different parts of our society. But I totally agree with you. In that regard, if they're looking for it, you know, there was a recent post by the guy who did the drawing Muhammad contest in Arizona. That was just so ludicrous. You know, he was talking about he was going to get his fellow oath keepers and his fellow 3%ers, both of which was not true. But he was going to get them and go around and arrest people for treason, which is not what the one organization is about. But I don't want to get into that. But the stuff that you're talking about in that regard is ridiculous and it's completely unbalanced. And you know, I don't know how, from a liberty standpoint, to work the mental health side of it in there, but it does need to be somewhere. You know, it's like if intelligent people of good conscience would sit down and really deal with things in our society like we want, it would be nice. And the only other comment I want to make before I get out your way is I disagree that this election needs to be about a single issue, and here's why. I'm really annoyed at the president right now, not because of his speech about the gun violence. I actually put an article out there this morning about the recent history of mass shootings in the last 25 years. The only thing that's in the article is a chronology of a number of events. Didn't make any comments, didn't say any opinions, just say, here's our reality. So I don't have an issue with that. But what I do have an issue with is making this a single issue thing, or about the economy, or for example, is right now we are in bed with Saudi Arabia, for example. And what they're doing to their own people violently is insane. And yet we're not talking about it in this election. We have candidates who have no foreign policy on even their website. Doesn't matter which side it is. And I just want people to please hold them accountable for all of it.
Yes, let me tell you what I mean. I think when he says single issue, okay, and I'm just saying, I think instead of saying single issue, what I think is probably best to say is that is not a single issue that you want, but that is a disqualifying issue. Somebody that's not going to come and do something about a problem. That should be a disqualifying issue, not a single. In other words, I'm not saying it's a single issue; it's a disqualifying issue. I think that's the way it should have been said. And now that you bring that up, that's what I think it should be. Now, Greg brought up a point that how does police know who the shooter is, etc. But we'll tackle that in another one, Bobby, because I only have like 6 minutes left, and I want to get one other call in. So, look, thank you for calling in as usual with intelligent comments, sir. I'm leaving you hot. 620, I think this is Jack. Jack, make your point, my dear brother.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I want to say that gun should be gun regulation should be okay. It's people should first of all be aware that it's not the NRA.
Right.
It's the gun manufacturers that control the NRA, and people aren't aware of it, and I think you should go after them.
Jack, I want to stop you there.
Number two is that guns regulation should be like people should be like regulation with driving car. Gun rights should be a privilege, not a right.
Right. Well, right now the way we talk about it,
there's a lot of difference there.
I hear you.
I think you gotta put some balls in those.
I hear you.
Our Congress, and particularly the Democrats
and
some Republicans that might be
Jack,
inclined to be more moderate.
Jack, you're absolutely. I hear you.
Moderate to the darn system.
I hear you, Jack. I gotta go now to ask for our closing statements, and I'm pretty sure John is going to talk to me a little bit more about Corrine. So John, come on in with a closer, my friend.
Okay. I just hope that somehow people can not let their violent side come into play, and that somehow we can get some kind of regulation going. But it seems very distant at this time. Just to try to cut to the chase on the Corrine Brown situation, Judge Lewis will make a decision by October 17th, and from a lot of the press articles I've read, he's not going to redistrict Corrine Brown's 5th district. From what comments that he's made, he's going to choose between 7 different maps that have been put before him, and so I don't think that's going to happen.
I want to talk to you about this a little bit more. I need to cut now, but I want to bring this up again. So the next time we talk, let's talk about this, because that is quite interesting what you're saying there. So let's do that. Okay, John?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I see your...
Yeah, go ahead.
I see your point. You're making a good point. Racism should always be brought out. But, there's always a bigger picture also. And, this law is a good law, because
exactly.
the gerrymandering is rampant in Florida.
Right.
And it shouldn't go on either side.
Absolutely. Thank you, John.
I also understand Corrine Brown wants to keep her seat.
They all do, not Corrine Brown. Every single one of them want to keep their seat. Okay, give me a quick closer, Rodrigo.
Oh, you guys had a good discussion. The gerrymandering issue is very important in Florida and all across the country as well. I totally agree with the conversation in that regard. Racism is always important, of course, and just ask everybody to pay attention and research.
Thank you.
Don't believe what I tell you. Just look at it.
I love that phrase. We actually have it as a meme now, Bobby. Okay, Jack, give me a quick closer, my friend. Quick one, Jack.
Okay, all right. People should not be gullible, and you got that 5% of people that are afraid of they'll vote crazy.
Great.
That has to deal with the 5% of the voters that are extreme right wing, and
I gotta leave it there. Gotta leave it there.
Dominate.
Gotta leave it there. Gotta leave it there, Jack. And while I give my little closer here, please, for my Periscope listeners, go ahead and type something if you want me to say it, folks. I am, as usual, very appreciative of the time that you've given me, whether it's watching the show on Periscope, whether it is listening to the show on Blog Talk Radio, or whether it is, I got to cut in, register every gun, require a license to own one. That from Greg Rusak. Anyway, again, I thank you all for being a part of the program. We'll continue to do this. Do remember to visit coffeepartyusa.com and become a member. Join us if you're interested in blogging. We always want to have good bloggers, irrespective of your point of view, as long as you are honest within your point of view, as long as you're blogging from values. We want to have your blog aired. That goes for you too, Rosek. I see you on the line. And folks, look, it's been a difficult week for me. I'm going to tell you that I took this week was very hurtful to me again, and I know hurtful to us all, because it is as if when these things occur, we feel impotent. It is as if we lose control. I can say one thing. That is what the plutocracy wants us to feel. That is how they want us to react. They want us to believe there is no alternative, and as such, we should acquiesce to whatever they say. As such, we should acquiesce to whatever they want. As such, we should acquiesce to everything they demand of us.
Seconds.
Let's make sure that we do not fall into the trap. We cannot allow ourselves to fall into the trap. Let's not allow ourselves to be demoralized. If we are demoralized, they've won. Individually, it's okay to be down here and there. We must prop up each other. We must not be fighting among each other, because we should have our eyes on that
60
same
seconds.
ball. That is what we should be aiming for. When among us there is dissension, they win. That's what they want. And for those who think some of us are paranoid, there is a they. There is a they. There are puppeteers out there that are pulling the strings. And those are the strings that we are responsible for slicing, for cutting, for chopping. That's the only way. You know, when a lot of folks in the Tea Party say, we want our country back. No, we want our country back. Not only for us, but even our country back for those Tea Partiers. We want our country back for every single American citizen, for every single
10
resident
seconds.
of this country. This is Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies. Thank you for spending this time with me. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.